You want to do what? My father's voice echoed through our pristine suburban kitchen, making the designer light fixtures tremble. His face, already red from his third scotch of the evening, darkened to an alarming shade of purple. I want to start a software company, I repeated, trying to keep my voice steady. I've already developed a prototype. It's a platform that helps small businesses. Absolutely not. He slammed his glass down. We didn't pay for your Stanford degree so you could waste your life on some pipe dream. You're joining the family business. End of discussion. I looked at my mother, hoping for support. She sat perfectly still at our marble island, maintaining her usual careful distance from conflict. The diamond tennis bracelet I'd given her for Christmas, bought with my savings from secret freelance coding jobs, glinted on her wrist. Mom, I tried. You've seen how many small businesses are struggling with digital transformation. My platform could really help. Daniel. She sighed, examining her manicure. Your father's right. This tech obsession of yours, it's not practical. Norton Industries needs you. The company's been in the family for 3 generations. What they really meant was that Norton Industries, our family's industrial supply business, was failing. They needed my programming skills to modernize their outdated systems, to help them compete in a rapidly digitizing market. But I had bigger dreams. I'm not asking for money, I said. I have savings. I just need some time, Time? My father barked out a laugh. You want time to play with computers while real businesses are at stake. While your sister is already making partner at her law firm. Ah yes, my perfect older sister Sophia. Harvard Law, youngest partner in her firm's history, married to a surgeon. The standard against which all my failures were measured. This isn't playing, I insisted. I've already got interest from potential clients. Small businesses need affordable software solutions, and the big tech companies aren't serving them. My platform cooled. The glass shattered against the wall inches from my head. Enough! My father roared, whiskey dripping down the expensive wallpaper. You have a choice. Join Norton Industries on Monday or get out. See how long you last without our support. My mother flinched at the noise, but said nothing. She never did. I looked at them both, my father trembling with rage, my mother avoiding my eyes, and made the decision that would change everything. I choose out. What? I'm leaving. I stood up, surprisingly calm. Good luck modernizing Norton Industries without me. You ungrateful. My father started toward me, but I was already heading upstairs. I had known this moment might come. My backpack was already packed with essentials: laptop, portable hard drive, 2 changes of clothes. My important documents were safely stored in a safety deposit box. Most of my savings were in an account my parents couldn't access. You have 1 hour. My father shouted up the stairs. Then I want you out of this house. I grabbed my emergency bag, my favorite hoodie, and took one last look at my childhood bedroom. The walls still displayed my coding competition medals, science fair awards, the framed article about the app I developed in high school that had caught Stanford's attention. My phone buzzed. A text from my best friend Marcus. Operation Escape still on. Happening now, I typed back. Plan B initiated. Marcus and I had gamed out this scenario months ago, when I first decided to pursue my startup dreams. He had a small apartment above his family's restaurant where I could crash until I got on my feet. As I headed for the door, my mother finally spoke. Daniel, please. Be reasonable. Your father only wants what's best. No, I cut her off. He wants what's best for Norton Industries. There's a difference. I walked out without looking back. The first night in my car was surreal. I'd parked on a quiet street 2 blocks from my parents' house, close enough to maintain a strong connection to their high-speed Wi-Fi network, which I'd installed and secured myself, far enough that they wouldn't spot me. My laptop glowed in the darkness as I continued coding, the familiar rhythm of keystrokes drowning out the voice in my head that whispered I was making a huge mistake. "You sure about this?" Marcus asked when he brought me dinner. "Is Mother's incredible pad thai? My couch is still available." I shook my head, showing him my workspace, laptop, mobile hotspot for backup internet, power bank for emergencies. I need to stay mobile for now. Can't risk them finding me and trying to force me back. He peered at my screen. "What exactly are you building?" I pulled up my prototype's interface. I call it Smart Start. It's an all-in-one digital platform for small businesses. Point of sale, inventory management, customer relationships, online presence. Everything they need to compete in today's market, but simplified and affordable. Like what your dad's company needs? Similar, but designed for smaller businesses that can't afford enterprise solutions. I thought of all the local shops I'd seen struggle and fail because they couldn't keep up with digital transformation. There's a huge market being ignored by big tech. Marcus nodded slowly. His family's restaurant still used paper order tickets and a cash register from the 1990s. "How long until it's ready?" "Basic version? 2 months. I've got most of the core functions working. Just need to polish the interface and add some features." What I didn't tell him was that I was also secretly documenting everything wrong with Norton Industries systems. Every vulnerability, every inefficiency, every missed opportunity for digital innovation. Not out of spite, but because I knew that someday they'd need exactly what I was building. They just didn't know it yet. Life settled into a strange routine. During the day, I'd work from various coffee shops, buying the minimum necessary to justify using their space and Wi-Fi. At night, I'd park near my parents' house, using their high-speed connection to upload code and run complex tests. I lived on protein bars, coffee, and Marcus's family's leftovers. Showered at a cheap gym membership. Learned which parking lots were safe to sleep in and which to avoid. It wasn't comfortable, but it was productive. Without distractions, without my father's constant criticism or my mother's passive disappointment, I could focus entirely on building Smart Start. 1 week in, my sister Sophia tried to intervene. "This is ridiculous, Daniel," she said when she tracked me down at my usual coffee shop. "You're living in your car to prove what? That you can be as stubborn as Dad." I didn't look up from my coding. "I'm building something important. You're throwing away a guaranteed future with the family business." "The family business is dying," I said bluntly. "Dad's too proud to admit it. But their systems are ancient, their processes are inefficient, and their competitors are eating them alive. Then help fix it." I finally met her eyes. "That's exactly what I'm doing, just not the way they want." She left in frustration, but not before leaving a thick envelope on my table. Inside was $5,000 in cash with a note. "Don't be an idiot. Come home." I used the money to buy a better laptop and upgrade my development tools. The breakthrough came in month 2. I'd been approached by several small businesses interested in beta testing Smart Start. A local bookstore, a family-owned hardware store, a growing food truck business, all struggling with exactly the problems my platform was designed to solve. "This is exactly what we need," the bookstore owner said after I demonstrated the inventory management system. QuickBooks is too complicated, and the custom solutions are too expensive. How much would this cost? I quoted a price that made her eyes light up, deliberately lower than market rate, designed to build word of mouth. By month 3, I had paying customers. Small amounts, but steady income. Enough to rent a tiny studio apartment, though I kept it off the lease to stay under my parents' radar. Then came the call that changed everything. "Is this Daniel Norton?" The voice was professional, authoritative. "Yes. This is Charles Widener from Tech Fund Ventures. We've been hearing interesting things about your Smart Start platform." My heart stopped. Tech Fund Ventures was one of the most prestigious early-stage investors in the country. One of our portfolio companies mentioned your solution. Said it's exactly what the small business market needs. Would you be interested in discussing potential investment? I gripped my phone tighter, thinking of all the nights coding in my car, all the meals skipped to buy server time, all the doubts and fears pushed aside to pursue this dream. "Yes," I said, "I would definitely be interested." What I didn't know then was that this conversation would set in motion a chain of events that would not only validate my vision, but also bring me face to face with my family's business failures in a way none of us could have predicted. The Tech Fund Ventures office occupied the top floor of a gleaming downtown skyscraper, exactly the kind of place my father would approve of. I adjusted my one good suit, bought secondhand for investor meetings, and tried not to look like someone who'd been living in his car 2 months ago. Charles Widener was younger than I expected, maybe early 40s, with the relaxed confidence of someone who'd made his fortune in the first .com boom. "Walk me through it again," he said, gesturing to the conference room's massive display where my Smart Start demo was running. I pulled up the interface that had become as familiar as my own reflection. Small businesses are drowning in digital complexity. They need e-commerce, inventory management, customer relationship tools, but existing solutions are either too expensive, too complicated, or too limited. I demonstrated how a small business owner could set up their entire digital presence in under an hour. Point of sale, inventory tracking, customer communications, even basic analytics, all integrated, all simple enough for anyone to use. "And this scales?" Charles asked. "Completely. The architecture is cloud-based, modular. We can add features as businesses grow, integrate with other platforms, but the core stays simple." He nodded slowly. "And your current users?" 28 paying customers, all from word of mouth. 0 churn rate. Average user engagement is 4 hours daily. That's impressive. He pulled up another screen. My company's incorporation documents. Innovative Solutions LLC. Registered 6 months ago. Yes, all self-funded so far. He studied me carefully. "You're Jonathan Norton's son." My heart skipped. "You know my father?" Norton Industries was one of my first investments, back in the day, before your father bought out the minority shareholders. His expression turned thoughtful. "They're having trouble adapting to digital markets, I hear." I kept my face neutral. "I wouldn't know. I'm not involved with Norton Industries." "Interesting." He tapped his tablet, and a new document appeared on the screen. "We'd like to offer you seed funding. $2 million for a 20% stake." I tried not to show how my hands were shaking. $2 million. More money than I'd ever imagined having access to. "There's one condition," Charles continued. "We want you to expand your focus. Small businesses are good, but mid-sized enterprises need these solutions too. Companies like, say, Norton Industries." And there it was. The trap I'd been both expecting and dreading. You want me to target my family's business. He smiled slightly. I want you to target a market segment that desperately needs modernization. The fact that your father's company might benefit is incidental. I thought about all the nights I'd spent parked outside my parents' house, using their Wi-Fi to build something they dismissed. About my father's rage and my mother's silence. About the small businesses already thriving with Smart Start. I'll need full control of the company's direction, I said. No interference with the core mission. Of course. He slid a folder across the table. Have your lawyers review it. But Daniel, don't wait too long. This market won't stay open forever. I signed the deal 3 days later, after my sister Safia, still a better lawyer than she knew, reviewed every clause. You're really doing this, she said, handing back the marked-up documents. Going directly against Dad's business. I'm building something that could save his business, I corrected, if he's willing to see it. She shook her head. You know he won't. Not coming from you. She was right, of course, but I had a plan for that too. The next 6 months were a blur of scaling up. I rented real office space, a converted warehouse that would have given my mother a heart attack. Hired developers, designers, sales staff. Marcus came on as head of customer success, his experience with small business owners proving invaluable. Smart Start grew faster than even Charles had predicted. Word spread through business communities about the platform that actually delivered on its promises. Our user base exploded from dozens to hundreds, then thousands. Then came the article that changed everything. Digital David versus Goliath. How Smart Start is disrupting enterprise software. The tech press had finally noticed us. The article praised our innovation, our focus on user experience, our ability to help small businesses compete with larger corporations. It also mentioned, almost as an aside, that I was the estranged son of Jonathan Norton. My phone rang minutes after the article went live. Sophia. Dad's furious, she said without preamble. He's calling an emergency board meeting. Why? Smart Start isn't competing with Norton Industries. No, but 3 of their biggest customers just announced they're switching to your platform. I sat back, stunned. We'd been so focused on small businesses, I hadn't noticed the mid-sized companies starting to adopt Smart Start. There's more, Safia continued. Their latest quarterly numbers. They're bad, Daniel. Really bad. The board is talking about forcing Dad out if he doesn't modernize their systems. I pulled up Norton Industries' public financial reports. The numbers were worse than I'd imagined. Their stock had dropped 40% in 6 months. Customer churn was accelerating. Their ancient software systems were literally driving them toward bankruptcy. They need help, I said quietly. They need you, she corrected. But you know Dad will never admit it. I thought about Charles Wagner's words about targeting mid-sized enterprises, about all the features we'd built into Smart Start that could save companies exactly like Norton Industries. Maybe, I said slowly, they don't need to know it's me. That night, I called an emergency meeting of my own team. We're launching Enterprise Solutions, I announced, pulling up the prototype I'd been quietly developing. A new division focused on larger businesses, built on the Smart Start framework, but with additional features for complex operations. Marcus frowned. I thought we were staying focused on small business. We are. But there's a whole segment of mid-sized companies being crushed between small business agility and big corporation resources. They need what we've built. I didn't mention that every feature in Enterprise Solutions had been designed specifically to solve Norton Industries' problems, that I'd spent months analyzing their weaknesses, building solutions for issues they didn't even know they had yet. The team worked around the clock for weeks. We launched enterprise solutions under a new brand, through a subsidiary company that couldn't be easily traced back to me. The marketing targeted companies exactly like Norton Industries, established businesses struggling with digital transformation. Then we waited. It didn't take long. Norton Industries' new chief technology officer, hired in desperation after their last system crash, reached out within days of our launch. The meeting was set for their headquarters. I watched via secure video feed as our sales team, carefully chosen to have no connection to me, presented enterprise solutions to my father and his board. I saw the moment he realized this was exactly what they needed. Saw him fight against admitting it. Saw the board members' eager questions about implementation and pricing. The investment would be significant, our sales lead explained, but the potential return. We'll need to see other options, my father interrupted. Jonathan, an older board member, leaned forward. We've seen 12 presentations in 2 months. This is the only solution that actually addresses our specific needs. And their track record. Impressive results with similar companies. Another board member chimed in. My cousin's manufacturing business switched to their system last quarter. Saw immediate improvements. I watched my father's face as he realized he was losing this fight. The board wanted change. Their customers demanded it. Enterprise Solutions was their best chance at survival. Fine, he growled. Start the procurement process. I closed the video feed, feeling strangely hollow. I'd done it. Created exactly what Norton Industries needed. Proved my vision was right. So why didn't it feel like victory? The answer came 3 days later when Sophia called again. Dad's drinking, she said without preamble. Really drinking. Mom's talking about separation. My stomach clenched. Because of enterprise solutions? Because he knows he failed. The company's falling apart, and he had to go begging to outsiders for help. She paused. He keeps saying he should have listened to you. I stared out my office window at the city skyline, thinking of all the choices that had led us here. My father's stubbornness, my own pride, the walls of silence we'd built between us. What if? I said slowly. There was a way to save both the company and his pride. How? I have an idea, but I'll need your help. The Norton Industries board meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. on a Thursday. I sat in my car outside their headquarters, the same spot where I'd once parked to use their Wi-Fi, watching familiar faces file into the building. My father arrived last, looking older than I remembered. His normally immaculate suit was slightly rumpled, his walk less confident than the stride I'd grown up admiring. Everything ready? I asked into my phone. All set, Sophia confirmed. The board members are prepped. Charles Wagner just arrived. And Mom, in position, though she's still not sure about this. I adjusted my tie, designer now, but still not the brand my father would choose. It has to be today. The Enterprise Solutions contract needs board approval by end of week. Good luck, Sophia said softly. Try not to enjoy this too much. I smiled despite my nerves. She knew me too well. The security guard did a double take as I walked in. Last time I'd been here, I'd been escorted out after another fight about joining the family business. Now I was back on my own terms. The boardroom fell silent as I entered. My father's face went from surprised to angry to confused in rapid succession. Charles Wagner, sitting near the head of the table, merely nodded as if he'd been expecting me. What are you doing here? My father demanded. I'm here to discuss the Enterprise Solutions contract, I said calmly, placing my laptop on the table. This is a closed board meeting. Security. Actually, Charles interrupted smoothly. Mr. Morton is here at my request. As the majority investor in Enterprise Solutions, I believe his input is crucial to this discussion. My father's face went pale. You? What? I connected my laptop to the display screen, pulling up a familiar interface, but not Enterprise Solutions. Instead, I showed them the original Smart Start dashboard, complete with my earliest notes and sketches. I started building this the day you kicked me out, I explained. Using your Wi-Fi, actually, since I was living in my car at the time. The board members shifted uncomfortably. My mother, sitting quietly in her usual corner seat, finally looked directly at me. Smart Start grew faster than anyone expected, I continued. Small businesses loved it because it solved real problems simply and affordably. But I knew larger companies needed similar solutions. I switched to the Enterprise Solutions interface. Every feature in this system was designed specifically to address Morton Industries' challenges: the inventory management, the customer tracking, the integration capabilities, all built based on intimate knowledge of what this company needs. You've been spying on us? My father's voice shook with rage. No, I've been trying to save your company. The same company you wanted me to join, but only on your terms. Charles Wagner cleared his throat. The board has reviewed Mr. Morton's proposal. Enterprise Solutions isn't just a software platform, it's a potential merger opportunity. My father's head snapped up. Merger? I pulled up new slides, the detailed merger proposal I'd spent weeks preparing. Smart Start Technology would acquire a controlling interest in Morton Industries, I explained. But the Norton name stays. The legacy business continues, enhanced by modern technology. And the current CEO transitions to Chairman Emeritus, focusing on strategic partnerships rather than day-to-day operations. The room was absolutely silent. You want to buy my company? My father whispered. I want to save it, I corrected. Transform it into something that honors its history while embracing the future. But it has to happen now, before the market completely passes you by. My mother spoke for the first time. Jonathan, listen to him. He turned to her, startled. In 30 years of board meetings, she'd never spoken up. I've seen what Daniel built, she continued. What he sacrificed to build it. This isn't about winning or losing. It's about family. Family? He barked out a laugh. He abandoned the family business. No, I said quietly. I found a different way to support it. Every feature, every innovation in Enterprise Solutions was designed with Morton Industries in mind. Because despite everything, I never stopped believing in what this company could be. I walked over to his chair, pulled up one more document on my tablet. My original business plan, written in my car that first night after being kicked out. The title read, Project Phoenix, Modernizing Norton Industries Through Independent Innovation. He stared at the document, recognition dawning. This was your plan all along. Plan B, actually. Plan A was convincing you to modernize from within. But you weren't ready to listen then. Charles Wagner stood up. The board needs to vote on this merger proposal by end of day. I suggest we take a brief recess to process this information. People filed out, leaving me alone with my father. He sat there, staring at my business plan, looking lost. Why didn't you tell me? He finally asked. Would you have listened? Really listened, not just heard what you wanted to hear. He was quiet for a long moment. You built all this, using our Wi-Fi? I couldn't help but laugh. That's what you're focusing on? No, He ran a hand through his gray hair. I'm trying to understand how my son went from living in his car to offering to buy my company in less than 2 years. The same way you built this company. By seeing an opportunity everyone else missed. By working harder than anyone thought possible. By believing in something bigger than myself. He nodded slowly. Your grandfather would have loved this, you know. He always said the best business lessons come from proving the skeptics wrong. I learned that from you, actually. All those stories about how you built Morton Industries, how you proved everyone wrong who said it would fail. I sat down next to him. I just did it my way, instead of yours. The board voted unanimously to approve the merger. My father, after the longest pause of my life, voted yes. The transition wasn't smooth. Change never is, especially in family businesses. But slowly, surely, Norton Industries began to transform. We kept the name, but modernized the brand. Kept the core business my grandfather had built, but enhanced it with technology that helped it thrive in the digital age. Smart Start's innovation combined with Norton's stability created something neither company could have achieved alone. 1 year later, I sat in what had been my father's office, our office now, since he'd finally accepted the chairman emeritus role. We were reviewing quarterly numbers, which had exceeded all projections. You were right, he said suddenly. I looked up. About what? About everything. The technology. The market changes. The need to adapt. He met my eyes. I was too proud to see it. Too scared of losing control. And now, he gestured at the tablet, showing our latest results. Now I'm proud of what you built. What we're building together. My phone buzzed. A message from Marcus about a potential new acquisition target. Another struggling family business that needed exactly what we created. Speaking of building, I said, pulling up the proposal. What do you think about expanding our enterprise division? He smiled, the real smile I remembered from childhood, before stress and fear had hardened him. Tell me more. Later that night, I drove past our old house. The Wi-Fi signal was still strong. I'd upgraded their system last month, though they didn't know it. I thought about that first night in my car, coding by the glow of my laptop, running on determination and spite and dreams of proving everyone wrong. But success, I'd learned, wasn't about proving others wrong. It was about proving yourself right, about building something so undeniable that even the strongest skeptics have to acknowledge its value. My phone buzzed again, a family dinner reminder from my mother. These were regular events now, though the conversation had shifted from criticism to collaboration, from judgment to genuine interest. Coming, I texted back. Then, because I couldn't resist, using the Wi-Fi to send this. Her response came quickly. Very funny. Your father says bring the new acquisition proposal. And yes, he's actually smiling about it. I smiled too, thinking of how far we'd come. From rejection to reunion. From competition to collaboration. From using their Wi-Fi in secret to helping them embrace the digital future. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving someone wrong. It's helping them become right in a whole new way. The day my grandmother, Catherine Hamilton, died, I was elbow-deep in soil, tending to her prized rose garden. She had taught me everything about those roses, which varieties needed more sun, how to prune them just right, and most importantly, how to nurture their roots so they'd flourish for generations. These roses are like secrets, Sarah, she'd often say, her blue eyes twinkling with hidden knowledge. Some bloom bright and bold, while others hide their beauty until the perfect moment. I didn't understand what she meant then, but I would soon enough. The call came from Mr. Patterson, her attorney, his voice carrying the weight of decades managing the Hamilton family's legal affairs. "Miss Hamilton, I'm afraid I have difficult news. Your grandmother passed away in her sleep last night." The rose clippers slipped from my hands, landing silently in the soft earth. My grandmother, the woman who had raised me after my parents' death, who had been more of a mother to me than anyone else, was gone. "There's something else," Patterson continued, his voice dropping slightly. "She left explicit instructions about her will. The reading is scheduled for tomorrow at 2 p.m. Your presence is mandatory." I barely registered his words, my mind still struggling to process the loss. "Of course, I'll be there. One more thing, Miss Hamilton. Your grandmother insisted that all family members must attend, including your Uncle Marcus." My hand tightened around the phone. Uncle Marcus, my father's younger brother and the current CEO of Hamilton Industries. The man who had spent years trying to convince grandmother to sell her controlling shares in the company. The man whose very presence made the air feel thick with tension at every family gathering. "I understand," I replied, though I didn't. Not really. The next day, I arrived at Patterson and Associates, the law firm that had handled Hamilton family matters since before I was born. The office occupied the entire top floor of a historic downtown building, its dark wood panels and leather-bound books speaking of old money and even older secrets. Uncle Marcus was already there, impeccable in his tailored suit, his silver hair perfectly styled. Aunt Diana, his wife, sat beside him, her face a mask of practiced sympathy. Their children, my cousins William and Victoria, completed the picture of the perfect grieving family. I took a seat across from them, suddenly conscious of my simple black dress and the dirt still lingering beneath my fingernails from yesterday's gardening. Uncle Marcus's eyes flickered over me, his lip curling slightly. "Sarah," he nodded curtly, "I trust you're well." Before I could respond, Mr. Patterson entered, carrying a thick manila envelope. He settled behind his massive desk, adjusting his reading glasses with practiced precision. "Thank you all for coming," he began, his voice grave. "We're here to discuss Catherine Hamilton's last will and testament. But before we proceed, she left specific instructions about how this meeting should be conducted." He opened the envelope, pulling out several documents. "First, I must confirm that all named parties are present." "Marcus Hamilton?" "Present," my uncle answered, his deep voice filling the room. "Diana Hamilton?" "Here," Aunt Diana whispered. "William and Victoria Hamilton." My cousins murmured their acknowledgments. "And Sarah Hamilton?" "Present," I said softly. Patterson nodded, satisfied. "Very well. Mrs. Hamilton's will is unusual. She has divided her estate into 2 parts." Uncle Marcus leaned forward slightly, his fingers drumming against his armrest. "The first part concerns Hamilton Industries. As you know, Catherine held controlling interest in the company, 51% of all voting shares." Patterson paused, glancing at each of us in turn. "These shares, along with her other business holdings, will be held in trust for 30 days. "Held in trust?" Marcus interrupted, his voice sharp. "For what purpose?" Patterson raised a hand. "Please let me finish. After 30 days, the shares and business holdings, valued at approximately $50 million, will be transferred to Sarah Hamilton." The room erupted in chaos. Uncle Marcus shot to his feet, his face flushed with anger. "This is absurd. Sarah has no business experience, no understanding of the company. She spends her days playing in the dirt. Victoria let out a small, shocked laugh. William just stared at me, his expression unreadable. I sat there, frozen. $50 million. Control of Hamilton Industries. It felt surreal, like a dream I couldn't quite grasp. But Patterson wasn't finished. He pulled out another envelope, this one sealed with dark red wax, bearing my grandmother's personal seal. However, he continued, silencing the room, there is one condition. All eyes turned to him as he held up the sealed envelope. This contains information that Mrs. Hamilton insisted must be revealed at the upcoming Hamilton family reunion, scheduled for exactly 30 days from today. If the information is not disclosed as specified, the entire inheritance will be donated to charity. Uncle Marcus's face had gone from red to white. What information? Patterson shook his head. I don't know. The envelope is sealed and addressed only to Sarah. He extended the envelope toward me. As I reached for it, I noticed something strange. Uncle Marcus's hands were trembling. This is ridiculous, he sputtered. You can't possibly expect us to wait 30 days while some gardener holds the company's fate in her hands. I took the envelope, feeling its weight, not just in physical terms, but in the way it seemed to carry the weight of secrets spanning decades. Those are Mrs. Hamilton's terms, Patterson said firmly. The family reunion will be held at Hamilton Manor as tradition dictates. Sarah must attend and reveal the contents of this envelope. Only then will the inheritance be officially transferred. As I left the law office that day, the sealed envelope secure in my bag, I caught Uncle Marcus watching me with an expression I'd never seen before. It wasn't just anger or frustration, it was fear. Walking to my car, I ran my fingers over the envelope's wax seal. What secret could be so important that my grandmother would stake $50 million on its revelation? And why did Uncle Marcus look so terrified? I didn't know then that the answer would shake the Hamilton family to its core, or that the next 30 days would change everything I thought I knew about my family's legacy. That night, I sat in my small apartment above the local flower shop I managed, staring at the envelope. The wax seal gleamed in the lamplight, almost daring me to break it. But something held me back. Perhaps the same instinct my grandmother had taught me about timing when tending to her roses. Some secrets, her voice echoed in my memory, are like the rarest blooms. They must be revealed at exactly the right moment. I placed the envelope in my safe, beside the only photo I had of my parents. Tomorrow, I would begin preparing for the family reunion, and whatever shocking truth lay sealed within that mysterious envelope. Little did I know, Uncle Marcus was already making plans of his own. Plans that would force me to decide between wealth and truth, between family loyalty and justice. The game was about to begin, and the stakes were higher than I could have imagined. As I finally drifted off to sleep that night, my grandmother's words echoed once more in my mind. Remember, Sarah, every rose has its thorns, but it's the thorns that protect the most beautiful blooms. I was about to discover just how sharp those thorns could be. The morning after the will reading, I woke to 3 missed calls from Uncle Marcus and a text message that made my blood run cold. We need to talk. Now, I sat in my small kitchen, watching steam rise from my coffee cup while considering my options. The sealed envelope lay before me, its red wax seal catching the morning light. Something about it felt heavy, like it carried more than just paper inside. My phone buzzed again. Uncle Marcus. This time, I answered. Sarah. His voice was controlled, measured. the same tone he used during difficult board meetings. "I'm outside your shop." I moved to window. Sure enough, his black Mercedes was parked in front of my modest flower shop, looking completely out of place among the local businesses. "Come up," I said, knowing this confrontation was inevitable. Minutes later, Uncle Marcus stepped into my apartment, his expensive suit a stark contrast to my simple living space. His eyes darted around, taking in the potted plants, the gardening books, the framed pressed flowers on the walls. "Charming," he said, though his tone suggested otherwise. "Your grandmother certainly taught you well about plants." I gestured to a chair. "What do you want, Uncle Marcus?" He sat down, adjusting his gold cufflinks, a nervous habit I'd noticed over the years. "Let's be practical about this, Sarah. You're not equipped to run Hamilton Industries. The company employs thousands of people. Our decisions affect lives, markets, entire industries. And you think I can't handle that responsibility? This isn't about capability. It's about experience, knowledge, connections." He leaned forward. "I've spent 30 years building this company. Your father, my brother, would have wanted—" "Don't." My voice was sharp. "Don't talk about what my father would have wanted." A flash of something, guilt, fear, crossed his face. "Fine," he said, reaching into his jacket. "Let's talk numbers instead." He pulled out a checkbook. $20 million. Cash. You sign over grandmother's shares to me, and you never have to work another day in your life. I stared at him. "And the envelope?" "Destroy it. Whatever's inside. Some things are better left in the past." The way his hand trembled slightly as he held the checkbook told me everything I needed to know. He was terrified of what was in that envelope. "No deal," I said quietly. His facade cracked. "You don't understand what you're doing. That envelope. There are things you don't know about this family, about your father." "Then maybe it's time I learned them." He stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "Think carefully about your next move, Sarah. Not everyone in this family will be as generous as I'm being." After he left, I sat there for a long time, thinking about his words. What didn't I know about my father? About this family? I needed answers, and I knew exactly where to start looking. That afternoon, I drove to Hamilton Manor, my grandmother's estate, and the heart of our family's legacy. The housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, who had served our family for over 40 years, greeted me with knowing eyes. "I wondered when you'd come," she said, leading me inside. "Your grandmother left something for you in the library." The library was exactly as I remembered. Walls of leather-bound books, the scent of old paper and wood polish, and my grandmother's antique desk dominating the room. Mrs. Chen walked to a painting behind the desk, a landscape of the manor grounds, and carefully removed it from the wall. Behind it was a safe. "She changed the combination last month," Mrs. Chen said. "To your birthday. Inside the safe, I found a leather journal and a USB drive. The journal's first page bore my grandmother's elegant handwriting. My dearest Sarah, if you're reading this, then you've already received the envelope. What it contains will change everything, but before you open it, you need to understand why. This journal contains the truth about the night your parents died, about your uncle's rise to power, and about the real reason I've chosen you to inherit everything. Be careful who you trust. The walls of Hamilton Manor have ears, and not everyone in this family deserves the name they carry. All my love, Grandmother Catherine." My hands trembled as I turned the page. What I read next made my heart stop. According to the journal, the car accident that killed my parents 20 years ago might not have been an accident at all. My grandmother had been investigating it for years, gathering evidence, following leads that the police had overlooked or been paid to ignore. The USB drive contained financial records, emails, and surveillance footage, a digital trail that pointed to a horrifying conclusion. Someone had tampered with my father's car the night he and my mother died. Someone who stood to gain from their deaths. Someone who took control of Hamilton Industries immediately after. Someone like Uncle Marcus. But before I could read more, I heard footsteps in the hallway. I quickly tucked the journal and USB drive into my bag just as Victoria, my cousin, entered the library. "I thought I saw your car outside," she said, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Finding anything interesting?" "Just memories," I replied, keeping my voice steady despite my racing heart. Victoria walked to the desk, running her fingers along its polished surface. "You know, Dad's really upset about all this. He built this company from nothing after Uncle James died. It's not fair that you just swoop in and take everything." I bit back a laugh. Built from nothing. Hamilton Industries had been thriving when my father ran it. It was only after his death that Uncle Marcus took control. "Your father will survive," I said, standing to leave. "Maybe." Victoria's voice turned cold. "But will you?" I stopped at the door. "Is that a threat, cousin?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Of course not. Just be careful, Sarah. Accidents happen in this family. Just ask your parents." I left Hamilton Manor with my heart pounding and my mind reeling. The journal in my bag felt like it weighed a ton, its secrets burning to be revealed. That night, I sat in my apartment reading every page of my grandmother's journal. The story it told was worse than I could have imagined. Corporate espionage, betrayal, murder, all hidden behind the respectable facade of the Hamilton name. But the most shocking revelation wasn't about my parents' death. It was about what happened after. About a series of decisions and deals that had turned Hamilton Industries from a respected family company into something darker. And Uncle Marcus was at the center of it all. As I read, pieces started falling into place. The frequent late-night meetings at the manor, the mysterious overseas accounts, the sudden resignations of board members who asked too many questions. It all pointed to a pattern of corruption that went beyond simple corporate greed. My grandmother had discovered it all, documented everything, but instead of exposing it immediately, she had waited, gathering more evidence, building an ironclad case. She knew that against someone like Uncle Marcus, you only got one chance. The family reunion was in 3 weeks. According to tradition, every member of the Hamilton family would be there, including board members, shareholders, and the press. The perfect audience for the truth to finally come out. But as I sat there surrounded by evidence of decades of deception, I realized something that chilled me to the bone. I wasn't the first person to discover these secrets. My father had known too. That's why he died. A knock at my door made me jump. It was past midnight. Who could be here at this hour? Through the peephole, I saw William, my other cousin, looking anxious. I opened the door cautiously. "William? What are you doing here?" He pushed past me into the apartment, his usual composed demeanor nowhere to be seen. "Sarah, you need to be careful. Dad, he's not himself. I overheard him talking to some men I've never seen before. They mentioned your name, and," he swallowed hard, "they talked about making problems go away. Why are you telling me this?" William ran a hand through his hair. Because I found something in Dad's study. Documents about Uncle James, your father, about the night he died. He pulled out a folded paper from his jacket. This is a copy of a payment made the day before the accident, to someone with expertise in car mechanics. I took the paper with trembling hands. The amount was substantial, the recipient's name unfamiliar. I always knew something wasn't right about that night. William continued. But I never had proof until now. Why show me this? He's your father. William's face hardened. Because he's not the man I thought he was. And because... He hesitated. Because Uncle James was good to me. He didn't deserve what happened to him. After William left, I added his document to my grandmother's evidence. The picture it painted was becoming clearer and more dangerous by the minute. I needed to be careful. Uncle Marcus wouldn't stop at threats. He'd already proven how far he'd go to protect his secrets. The family reunion was approaching, and with it, the moment when all these secrets would finally come to light. But first, I had to survive the next 3 weeks. Little did I know, Uncle Marcus was already setting his plan in motion. A plan that would force me to choose between justice and survival, between exposing the truth and protecting what little family I had left. The game was no longer just about an inheritance. It was about justice, revenge, and the true meaning of family. And somewhere in Hamilton Manor, the clock was ticking down to a revelation that would shatter the Hamilton name forever. The day of the Hamilton family reunion arrived with an unusual chill for early summer. As I drove up the winding path to Hamilton Manor, my grandmother's sealed envelope sat heavy in my designer handbag, a rare, expensive purchase I'd made for today's occasion. Inside my jacket pocket, a small USB drive contained copies of every document, every piece of evidence I'd gathered over the past month. I'd learned from my father's mistakes. If anything happened to me, multiple copies of everything would be sent to the press, the police, and the SEC. The manor's grand facade loomed before me, its windows gleaming in the morning sun. Cars already lined the circular driveway, sleek luxury vehicles belonging to board members, shareholders, and family members who only appeared at events like these. Mrs. Chen met me at the door, her eyes conveying silent support. "They're all in the main hall," she whispered. "Your uncle has been asking about you." I nodded, straightening my spine. The past 3 weeks had been a careful dance of avoiding Uncle Marcus's increasingly aggressive attempts to resolve the situation. First came the threats disguised as warnings, then the suspicious car that followed me for days, and finally, the break-in at my apartment that was made to look like a robbery. But they hadn't found what they were looking for. The evidence remained safe, distributed across multiple locations, waiting for this moment. The main hall buzzed with conversation as I entered. Heads turned, whispers followed. Everyone knew about the inheritance, about the mysterious condition, about the tension tearing apart the Hamilton family. Uncle Marcus stood near the fireplace, holding court with several board members. His smile faltered when he saw me, his hand tightening around his crystal whiskey glass. Victoria approached first, her designer dress rustling as she moved. "Glad you could make it, cousin. Though you really should have had your hair done professionally for such an important occasion." I touched my simple updo, the same style my mother used to wear. Some things are better kept simple. "Speaking of simple," she lowered her voice, "Dad has another offer for you. 10 million more than before. Last chance." I met her gaze steadily. "Tell him I'm not interested." She shrugged, the gesture too casual to be genuine. "Your funeral." As she walked away, William caught my eye from across the room. He gave me a slight nod. Our agreed-upon signal that everything was in place. Over the past weeks, he'd become an unexpected ally, helping me gather additional evidence while maintaining his cover as the dutiful son. The grandfather clock struck noon, its deep chimes silencing the room. According to tradition, this was when the family photograph would be taken, followed by lunch, and then the annual family meeting where company matters were discussed. Uncle Marcus cleared his throat. "Everyone, please gather around. The photographer is ready." As people arranged themselves by the grand staircase, I took my position near the edge of the group. Through the camera's lens, we'd look like the perfect family. Wealthy, successful, united. If only they knew what was about to happen. After the photos, we moved to the dining room. Crystal glasses clinked, silver cutlery gleamed, and conversation flowed as smoothly as the expensive wine. I barely touched my food, watching as Uncle Marcus grew increasingly tense with each passing minute. Finally, it was time for the family meeting. Board members, shareholders, and family members filed into the manor's wood-paneled conference room. Journalists from select financial publications, invited to cover Hamilton Industries' latest announcements, sat in the back, notepads ready. Uncle Marcus took his place at the head of the table, exactly where my father used to sit. "Before we begin discussing company matters," he said, his voice carrying across the room, "I believe my niece has something she'd like to share with us." All eyes turned to me. This was the moment my grandmother had planned for, the moment 20 years in the making. I stood slowly, removing the sealed envelope from my bag. The red wax seal caught the light, drawing every gaze in the room. "As you all know," I began, my voice steady despite my pounding heart, "my grandmother left me her controlling shares in Hamilton Industries on one condition, that I reveal the contents of this envelope today, before all of you." Uncle Marcus's knuckles were white as he gripped the arms of his chair. I broke the seal carefully, pulling out several photographs and documents. The first photo showed my father in his office, looking concerned as he examined some papers. The timestamp showed it was taken the day before his death. 20 years ago, I continued, my parents died in what we were told was a tragic accident. But my grandmother never believed it was an accident. She spent years investigating, gathering evidence, following leads that others had overlooked or been paid to ignore. Murmurs rippled through the room. I placed the first document on the table, a copy of a bank transfer. This payment was made to a mechanic the day before my parents' death. A mechanic who specialized in brake systems. The same mechanic was found dead from an apparent suicide 2 weeks later. Uncle Marcus stood abruptly. "This is ridiculous. You can't possibly." "I'm not finished." My voice cut through his protest like a knife. The same day this payment was made, someone accessed my father's office after hours. The security footage, which was supposedly lost, shows exactly who it was. I nodded to William, who connected his laptop to the room's projection system. The grainy footage played, showing Uncle Marcus entering my father's office late at night, removing documents from the safe. The next morning, I continued as the footage played. My father confronted Uncle Marcus about what he'd found. Evidence of embezzlement, offshore accounts, deals with shell companies that existed only on paper. Hours later, my parents were dead. The room had gone completely silent. Even the journalists had stopped writing, their pens frozen mid-sentence. But that was just the beginning. I laid out more documents, bank statements, emails, surveillance photos. Over the next 20 years, Hamilton Industries under Marcus Hamilton's leadership became a front for money laundering, tax evasion, and corporate fraud on a massive scale. Victoria jumped to her feet. You're lying. This is all fabricated. Every document has been verified, I cut in. Every transaction traced. Every witness statement recorded. My grandmother spent years building this case, making sure it was ironclad before she died. I turned to the journalists. You'll each find a complete digital copy of all evidence in your email inboxes. The SEC, FBI, and Department of Justice received their copies an hour ago. The room erupted in chaos. Board members shouted questions. Shareholders reached for their phones. Family members stared in shock or anger, or both. Through it all, Uncle Marcus remained eerily still, his face drained of color. Then slowly, he began to laugh. A hollow, broken sound that silenced the room. You're just like him, he said, staring at me with something between hatred and admiration. James always thought he could fix everything, make everything right. Look where it got him. No, I replied calmly. I'm not like my father. I'm like my grandmother. I waited. I planned. I made sure you couldn't stop the truth from coming out. As if on cue, the conference room doors opened. Federal agents streamed in, led by a stern-faced woman who held up her badge. Marcus Hamilton, she announced. You're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, money laundering, and the murders of James and Eleanor Hamilton. I watched as they led him away in handcuffs, Victoria's screams, and William's quiet resignation fading into background noise. Outside, camera flashes exploded as journalists captured the moment the mighty Marcus Hamilton was brought low. Hours later, after the agents had gone, after the journalists had filed their stories, after shell-shocked family members had driven away in their luxury cars, I stood alone in my grandmother's rose garden. The roses were in full bloom, their petals catching the last rays of sunlight. I knelt down, touching one gently, remembering all the lessons my grandmother had taught me here. You were right, I whispered to her memory. Some secrets do need perfect timing to bloom. Mrs. Chen found me there as darkness fell. Your grandmother would be proud, she said softly. Both of your parents would be. I nodded, standing up and brushing dirt from my knees. What happens now? She smiled. Now you do what your father always wanted. Run the company the right way. Your way. The next morning, as I sat in what had once been my father's office, now mine, I looked out over the city. Hamilton Industries would survive this scandal, emerge stronger, cleaner. The roses in my grandmother's garden would continue to bloom, their beauty no longer hiding thorny secrets. I opened my father's old desk drawer and found a small framed photo I'd never seen before. My father holding me as a baby, my mother laughing beside him, and my grandmother watching us all with knowing eyes. The same eyes that had seen through Uncle Marcus's facade, that had planned for justice even beyond her death. On my desk, next to my laptop, sat a single rose from the garden, a reminder that truth, like the rarest blooms, requires patience, care, and perfect timing to flourish. The Hamilton family would never be the same, but maybe that was exactly what it needed.